not entertained! Is this not why you are here?
Hey, what's up, everyone? Joe Alsabrook here, Mindset Over Everything, the podcast. Look, I've started this whole Mindset Over Everything podcast, and I don't know if you want to call it a movement to this point, but I started it for this reason. The real story's not being told. There's a lot of people and a lot of content out there about the journey and about, what you need to do to be successful and, and follow these steps. But most of them are geared towards selling you a plan, selling you a system, selling you some BS. I mean, if you want to know what I'm talking about, go scroll through your Instagram feed. Everybody who knows who Little Bow Wow is, remember how Little Bow Wow was standing next to that jet, wasn't even his, had a picture taken, implying or even saying that jet was his? Well, that's Instagram. That's Facebook. Everybody's trying to paint this picture of the journey. Everybody wants you to see them as the expert and the success spurt. I might trademark that. On the journey, because nobody wants to show the vulnerability. And if you've listened to any of these episodes, I hope that message has come across, is that I'm going to show you the grit behind the grind, right? I'm going to show you the fact that if it's shiny, it's because you busted your ass to make it that way, not because you picked it up and took it and ran with it, right? And that leads me into today's episode on the podcast. Emotions. Emotions can be the best fuel on your journey, but that same fuel can burn everything to the ground. And it's so tough. Anyone that tells you, and if you're listening to these gurus out there that you follow, here's a heat check for them, right? Here's a reality check for them. Are they telling you that they can measure their emotions and they can weigh those emotions and they can, control those emotions with ease? Or are they telling you the real story behind that? Because I'll tell you right now, I don't care what level they're at, their egos and their emotions are a problem. They are mine. They are mine. I fight it all the time. And I talked in the previous episode about my mortality lesson that changed my life and how I lost my father about 7 years ago to cancer. And it was 7 years ago to this month here in February. And every year I try to tell myself that this is different, right? Now, it's not going to affect me. It's not going to impact me as much. And, this year I did it again. I lied to myself and I told myself that, hey, man, look, it's probably not even going to affect me. It does, man. It hits you. And then when everything else starts blowing up around, because business isn't all, puppy dogs and rainbows and sunshine, right? Things are going to go wrong. And then when you have the stress and pressures from a relationship and your home life and all of the bills and everything else that you got to deal with and all the moving parts and the pieces that aren't really fitting together and, all of those things accumulate whether or not you're going through those emotions. So my point here now is what I want to talk to you about is, what do you do when you find those emotions taking control of what you got going on in your life on a day-to-day basis? When you find yourself being in a bad mood or worse, you're really sad, right? Like that just hits you and it's impacting you. And what do? It happens. It happens. But who tells you about that? And how do you mitigate that? How do you manage that process? Well, this is what I did. And I'm not saying do what I did. I'm just telling you that I recognized it when it happened. And I knew that I was going to be shit that day unless I got a hold of it. Unless I did something to physically reset what was going on. So I took control of it. I said, look, I'm going to go out. I didn't make it to the gym that morning. I tried to give myself, because I get up at 5:30 and I would try to be in the gym. I gave myself excuses not to go. Finished my morning routine, got the kids to school, dropped my better half off at work, and I said, okay, here's the deal, right? You've got some meetings today, Joe, and where you're at right now mentally, you're not prepared for these meetings. So I went and I took a walk. 3 miles. Ended up being 3 miles. I didn't know how long it was going to be. I just knew that I needed to reset what the hell was going on. And in that walk, I put on my headphones. I put on, not music, right, but I listened to the Law of Attraction. And so I had Law of Attraction series that I listen to on YouTube. And, man, some of it's hokey. I don't buy into a lot of it, but I buy into the concept enough to let me go ahead and put some positive things in here. Let me reset what was going on. And something pretty interesting happened on this walk while I was listening to these episodes. And they're about 10 minutes, 15 minutes each. It's Abraham Hicks on YouTube. You can search it. So I'm going through and I'm listening to it, and I had this powerful realization that happened. I'm going to share that with you right now. And most of the people that see this, right, and that hear this realization, it's probably not going to hit you where it hit me when I had it, because you may or may not be in that same mentality, that same mindset. I'm not talking to you necessarily. I'm talking to that person that needs to hear it, and it may impact them enough, and that's, again, why I share this information. And this information is going to be out there in the podcast, so I digress. Let me get to the point. Our attitudes are the pathways to the abundance that we seek. Think about that for a second, because I'm going to expand on it. Our attitudes are the pathways to the abundance that we seek. If our attitudes are the pathway, our emotions are the vehicle, and our belief is the fuel. Think about that. Your attitude's the pathway, the emotions are the vehicle, and the belief is the fuel. The more efficiently and effectively we can manage those three items, those three things, because they're going to be at different levels at different points of our lives, right? Sometimes your attitude's great, sometimes it's shit. Sometimes your emotions are very even keel, sometimes they're way up because you just closed that big deal. Sometimes they're way down because that big deal just fell through, right? And then our belief. What is belief to you? Because belief to me is a committed thought. A belief is a thought that we continue to think constantly, committed to that thought. That is a belief. The good news is we control all three of those items. The bad news is you have to juggle. You have to learn to control those items in such a way that you can put yourself on the pathway to the abundance that you seek. That is where we are in this journey. We are continually, effectively or ineffectively, managing our emotions, our attitudes, and our belief. And at different points of our life, we're either believing in ourselves above and beyond all else, right? Or we're not. We're either believing in the system, the process, right? Or we're not. Our attitudes are really up, right? Upbeat. Our attitudes are great, or they're not. They're some level lower. Our emotions are either in that point where we can manage it. The thing is, we have to be in consistent control, but the awareness is where that comes. So by a point, I'm going to bring it full circle. When I realized that my emotions were taking control of what was going on that day, I decided to check the emotions at the door, get a hold of my attitude, control my action, and put the belief into myself that I could control where I was and reset that mindset, reset that frame to go where I needed to go and do what I needed to do to be effective in those meetings. Because why do you think in an airplane they tell you to put the oxygen mask on first in case of an emergency landing? In case of an emergency landing, put your oxygen mask on first. This is why. Because you're no good to anyone else dead. Think about that. That's why they tell you to put your oxygen mask on first. You go trying to save everyone else and you can't breathe? What good are you? So if I would have went into those meetings in that shit mindset with the bad emotions, my emotions are all over the place, right? Deep depressed, whatever the hell was going on in that moment, the attitude's not there, the belief's not there. What value would I have brought to that meeting and that partnership? So again, I'm gonna go back over that realization and I'm gonna wrap it up for you, right? Our attitudes are the pathways to the abundance that we seek. If our attitudes are the pathways, our emotions are the vehicle, and the belief is the fuel. The good news is you control all three of those things. Become aware of where you're at. Don't be afraid to heat check yourself and to get yourself out of that mode. Take it into, where do I need to go? Is it a 3-mile walk? Joe, I can't always do that, man. Sometimes you need to. Sometimes you need to do that 3-mile walk. Sometimes you need to check out of it, right? Sometimes you need to pull out of the system to get yourself where you need to be, because continuing to go is the same thing as putting the oxygen mask on everyone else. You're probably going to die. Maybe not physically, but you could emotionally, you could professionally. Folks, I love you. Mindset of Everything is the movement, the podcast. Make sure you subscribe if you like the content. If this hits you, if this resonates with you, definitely subscribe. You don't want to miss the episodes. And if you really like it, leave a rating and review. That's how I get out there to more people. I got a lot of things I got to do. I got to wrap up my day. But you guys, I hope you executed. I hope you make it a good one. Talk to you guys soon.